Hello, and welcome to a special episode of Casting Views. This is going to be a new format, but we hope you'll see again, but it'll be quite infrequent, where we pick something that's happened in the news that we're interested in and we want to react to it fairly quickly and just get our conversation out on it. This first episode, we're going to pick the manager merry-go-round in the Premier League and specifically with Tottenham. So I think we'll let the cat out the bag, Lou, and we'll say that we follow Tottenham. We're Tottenham supporters.
We are unfortunately blessed with supporting Tottenham.
And bear in mind, we want to try and keep this to half-hour episodes where we could probably talk for about two days non-stop on this. If you have seen the news, or if you haven't seen the news, basically we, as in Spurs, Tottenham, have sacked their manager after what was it, 14 games?
Yeah, it wasn't very many games since it's only been like 10 there or thereabouts.
Yeah, who was brought in new after we sacked the previous one, and so he's literally only been there from the start of the season. But there's excitement in the air with who we've got. So we've got Antonio Conte, who actually has come from winning the title with the team we support in Italy. So yeah, what do you think about the news then?
I was glad that Nuno got sacked. I was glad that he got sacked. I think Spurs played horrific, boring football. We got battered. We ended up. Do you remember the first three games where we were top of the league and Arsenal were bottom of the table? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
See, it feels like a long time ago now. When I think back to that as well, I think it was all three 1-0 wins. And when you actually look at those games, we scored one goal in each game and kept a clean sheet, which is obviously fine. Yeah, it's a great thing. But in reality, there were so many warning signs even then.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I think that we were linked with Conte previously to Nuno in any case anyway. And I think that Spurs couldn't bring Conte in because he was waiting for a different job. And that job didn't come. And Spurs panicked, I think. And so I think that's why Nuno came in. I mean, when you look at it as well from Nuno's perspective, I actually think he's ruined his managerial legacy a little bit
It's
because
definitely damaged it.
the Spurs job has done him no good. And in reality, the Spurs job doesn't really do anyone any good. Apart from Mauricio Pochettino, he was the only man that probably benefited. And you know what? Maybe throwing it back to Harry Redknapp as well, maybe benefited from the Spurs
Yeah, do you
job.
know what? I was looking last night, and I took it as a standpoint of 20 years. And yeah, if you look back that long, it really I think that it's those two managers. Harry Redknapp, he gave us a great sort of lift and got us a good couple of runs in the Champions League. And then
Yeah,
Pochettino, well, is only recently, but I think it coincides with those two being the ones who at least had it for the longest. If you look back, we've got it's two 3 years at most. Couple have just had the 1 year,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and Mourinho the week before the cup final. But we'll come on to that. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think as much as you can feel sorry for a football manager because they still earn shed loads, he's going to get paid off handsomely. And football's one of the only careers where you do get rewarded for failure and just walk into another job straight away. So
Yeah, this is true.
I started by saying that I kind of feel for him in the sense of I think it was the wrong person, definitely at the wrong time. I don't think it was the first choice. I don't think it was the second choice. I don't think it was the third choice. And it needed someone. I think with the players we've got and the way they're playing, it needed someone proven and someone who's probably going to give the players a rocket. I think.
Yeah, yeah. The only problem is don't get me wrong, Antonio Conte is obviously a fantastic manager. He's won titles with Juventus, with Chelsea. Obviously, won the Premier League, and I think did he win a cup with Chelsea as well, I think. And he obviously just recently won the Serie A with Inter as well. And Inter were obviously a side that in reality had no legitimate challenge to the
Yeah,
league
yeah,
in it
yeah,
really for like the last 9 years.
yeah.
So I am excited about Conte coming in because it's true he wins. Even when he managed the Italian national team,
Yep.
in reality he had a team that had Graziano Pelle and Adair up front, and we managed to beat Spain in the Euros, and only lost that to the Germans. But he
On
still, I think,
penalties, that was
overperformed.
as well.
Yeah, it was on penalties, and so I think he still even overperformed there. The only thing that is a little bit strange, obviously, he signs generally really short contracts. I know he's only being brought in for I think is it 18 months.
Yeah, for now, yeah, with an option to for an extra
Yeah,
year.
with a potential for an extension. The only thing that I would say is I feel like, irrespective of who Spurs get in, it's a case of we're just going to see history repeat itself because Antonio Conte is going to be the type that's going to need to spend a little bit of money. Now, he didn't spend massive amounts at Inter to get them into a title challenge, However, when you look at the competition in the Premier League, where you look at where Manchester City are, where Liverpool are, where even really United and Chelsea are, obviously, like the squads that they've got, the depth that they've all got. In reality, Tottenham are probably 250 million quid behind that,
Yeah,
and that's where I maybe struggle, because I feel like at the minute it's a bit like the way that the England job was always like traditionally described as a bit of like a poison chalice.
poison chalice. Yeah,
And that's kind of the way that I feel Spurs is, because irrespective, we are never going to be the type of club that spends 100 million quid on like a marquee signing. We're never going to set a record for a signing in the
Poss-
Premier League,
possibly
and
not.
so as a result, I think that you're going to really struggle regardless. Because even with Pochettino took Tottenham to a second place finish in the Premier League, didn't he? Was it the second year? And then we came third to behind Arsenal when Leicester won it, didn't we? And then he took Spurs to a Champions League final. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously, the luck was really on our side in that run to the Champions League final. However, when you look at what Pochettino was actually really given and what he actually spent, I can't really see where Conte's really going to get in much more than that. And that's where the problem kind of lies.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a few things to that, and I'd say firstly, I would like to think that if he's signed, he's been given certain assurances,
Yeah,
and that we've got money there. Now, no, you're right. I don't think we're not. Well, we're not the club that will go out and spend 100 million on a player. But I was looking. I think they were showing it on Sky Sports News last night. His average spend at clubs, and I can't remember Chelsea and Juve. They were both high, but at Inter where he won it, I think it was 62 million a year. And I think they compared it to Spurs in the last 5 years have averaged 79 million a year. Now,
yeah,
the thing is, I think we forget that Spurs have spent a lot of money. It's
yeah.
just we forget it because we've got nothing to
To
show
show
for it.
for it. Yeah, yeah,
And the thing, absolutely, what you just said, right? I think Poch got them playing more than the sum of the parts, right?
yeah, yeah,
But I think what I'm hoping for is Conte's probably, if he can do that, and he should do, has he got that killer instinct that he can put into the players that we've always
yeah,
been told we're lacking? I mean, that Champions League final, we could have, on paper that we were there, we could have won that. It was,
yeah.
what I'm trying to say is over 90 minutes. If we'd have,
Yeah,
loved the
you
game, we
didn't go into
possibly,
that game really. Spurs were underdogs in that final, but when you look comparatively at the teams, I don't really think there was a horrific amount in it, considering
no.
how good the Spurs team was actually playing at the time.
No, and take the league or the Carabao Cup last year, wasn't it? Final. I mean, sacking Mourinho, whatever the reason, and I've heard loads of things like it would have been more expensive to sack him after that, or Mourinho after that, or I don't care. We had a chance. We were in the final against Man City, fair enough, but with all fair play to Ryan Mason. With Mourinho, you're looking to get a better chance to win, right? And I'm hoping that if we can get, imagine if we could get into the final of the FA Cup this
Yeah,
year. We're still in the Europa Conference League. There's an option. There's an opportunity there, and I think
well,
can't we face? We could potentially face Roma in that, couldn't we? Which would be then Conte and Mourinho.
yeah, that's true. Could you imagine? But do you know what it is? I don't know. I'm obviously going to speak for myself and not speak for you. I mean, obviously, in my 26 years, God, I'm 26. I'm this old now, innit? In my 26 years as a Spurs fan, obviously, I've never really expected to see Tottenham win anything,
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
I kind of feel like that at the minute. Like I know that a lot of Spurs fans turn around and say, "Oh, we should be challenging for the league, or we should be winning trophies." It's like, well, history has told us that we don't really do that regardless. So it's kind of like I kind of sit here and I think, yeah, it's brilliant. We're going to bring Antonio Conte in, but in reality, are we a team that at the minute challenges for anything anyway? No. We get knocked out of the cup every time we play someone from London. We get slammed by everyone else in the Big
yeah,
Six and lose to West Ham every year.
yeah,
So when I look at the situation, I just think to myself, you know what? Yeah, bringing Antonio Conte in is great, but at what point do we turn around and say this actually just isn't a managerial issue? Like let's be honest. I'll ask you the question: do you
yeah.
think that let's say Antonio Conte stays for 2 years? Do you think he's winning anything at Spurs?
I think there's a potential for a cup, a domestic cup, which I would take right now. I agree with you. What I would say though, you're right. The problem is though, we no, we for 20 years. I don't, when was the last time we won something?
2000, was it 9, 10? What was it called? The Carling Cup, I think.
The difference being, and
Or
it
eight,
doesn't
nine.
matter in the end because the trophy cupboard has still been empty for years. At least you felt under, especially under Poch, they were trying to win something. At times, you felt it. The problem is the last few games. I mean, against Man United, we didn't have a shot on target for 90 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
a club like Spurs should be getting a shot on target in 90 minutes,
You,
even if
you
you're
know,
playing
do
Barcelona.
you know how shit it is? Like we're praying for a shot on target.
Yeah, well, that's
That's
it.
how fucking awful the situation is. But the thing is, do you know when? Sorry, I'm just going to skip back just before we move on because you talked about the cup. I'm going to ask you a question then. Do you think Everton could win the FA Cup?
Yeah, well, I think the thing they can. Again, they've got decent players and they've got a decent manager. It's just that what you don't see though is what's happening behind the scenes. And this is actually I was going to come back to your point. We, as in Tottenham fans, have historically said that we want. It's not necessarily even the players. Often there's something at the club, and it could is it the board? Is it Levy?
Yeah,
What this has done is no, and it's going to be bloody difficult for Conte to turn it round. I mean, the first 6 months you've just got to get through the season, right? But I think he's going to get rid of a lot of players, that's why I'm hoping he's signed and we've gone for him because there's been assurances that he will have control over players out as well as players in, but then build on it for next season. I was saying to someone today, this to me feels like the last throw of the dice for Spurs. And I don't mean that to sound dramatic, but Spurs how they currently are, because we've said we want a good manager. They've now gone out and got probably the best manager who's available, but also I'd probably put him in the top five right now.
yeah. He is a winner wherever he goes. In
Yeah.
reality,
So if he can't do it and for whatever reason the team still doesn't play for him, then there is something. It isn't. You can't then just blame the manager anymore or who it is.
well, in reality, I've been saying this about Tottenham and the ownership for ages because in reality, Daniel Levy's a very good businessman, and I can't fault him for that because Tottenham, in actual fact, is a really good investment when you look at the club and the money that they turn over. Admittedly,
Yeah,
obviously, the
yeah,
stadium has been a big expense. But when you look at Tottenham, the whole, for instance, the whole saga with Harry Kane, in reality, was Levy's decision to control. It was him that said no, Harry Kane's not going anywhere, and okay, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. But in reality, where did we finish last season?
Oh, it must have been six then, mustn't it?
Yeah, no, it must have been lower than six, seventh or eighth or whatever it was. Because we're in that shit Conference League. But the problem is okay. So we didn't let Harry Kane go out the door. So how bad must the actual team be? Because with Harry Kane, we are still seventh or eighth, and now in the league at the minute with Harry Kane, we're 10th. I
Yeah,
think
but
we are.
that's
So
really that's really interesting though as well. Like, and so we kept Kane, and it felt like a victory. But the problem is, if you then bringing in a manager, and again, this isn't to slam Nuno, you're bringing in a manager like that. Does Harry Kane look to him and think, "Okay, you've kept me, I've stayed. Is that going to be the manager who propels me to win?" And by all,
is that not what we did with Mourinho though?
but Mourinho, we got to the cup final though.
Yeah, that no, that's true. I agree. And again, shitty board decision by sacking Mourinho. It's
Yeah,
an idiotic thing to do. But in reality, Mourinho actually got Harry Kane to play the best football he's played because he finished the season top scorer, top assister. So when you look at that, I think to myself, okay, so we've already done that with Harry Kane, and we still did shit in the league, irrespective. And Harry Kane was probably one of the best players last season. So I just think to myself, yeah, that's great, but Harry Kane isn't turning into a 91 goal a season Lionel Messi in his prime. There's only so many goals he can actually score in a season. So I just think to myself, when you look at the Spurs team, I feel like as much as the assurances that Conte's been given, like we talked yesterday, just before this, in preparation for Conte potentially moving, because it's also been confirmed today, we talked about the rumoured players that were coming in.
yeah,
And there's players like Chiesa, Vlahovic, I think, is he from
yeah.
Atlanta?
But
Atalanta,
Belotti, I've
sorry.
heard the licks.
Matthias de Ligt,
Yeah.
Romagnoli, all of these players. And I just think to myself, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. But he actually needs all of those players to
Yeah,
turn the
yeah.
Spurs team around.
Well, yeah, but I guess in the short term, like I said, if you can get Harry on form again, you're taking it. If you maybe can he work with Dele Alli and get him back
Yeah.
on form? The thing is, the Spurs side isn't terrible. It's just it's probably a mid-level team playing terribly.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if I remember right, when Mourinho took over those, Spurs were already kind of like on the downward bit from Pochettino. Whatever happened after the Champions League final, do you remember
yeah,
so he took in plus COVID, and you just don't know. I think that's the one regret, as well as obviously we won't talk about losing the title to Leicester that year. The other big regret in recent years is could we have won that with Mourinho that final?
yeah,
And the thing is, right now, this is how bad it is. I'll take either of those cups over the Conference League, Europa Conference League, or the FA. Well, absolutely the FA Cup. But it's about turning that squad around. If we can just get, he's not going to turn it around in like 2 or 3 games. But having a look at the fixture list, I think up until the 19th of December, where I think we play Liverpool, we've got decent run of games where if he can get a tune out of them, we should get, it would be, we could get a good positive run potentially.
yeah.
But like you said, those players have got to kind of buck themselves up a bit. There's a lot of, to not have a shot. I mean, like I said, I know I'll come back to that, but to not have a shot in 90 minutes, come on.
Yeah. I mean, do you know what the problem is as well? Again, I kind of compare it to other teams kind of in that top bracket. When you look at, if you want to do your traditional big clubs in England and you want to do your traditional top six, it's United, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs. In reality, those are your big traditional clubs, and then Leicester over recent years. But when I think about the way that Tottenham have been over the past maybe 5, 6 years, beginning with Pochettino and kind of to where we are now, we have had Jose Mourinho, who, irrespective of what people think of him, I know that Chelsea fans won't like him because obviously he's gone to Tottenham. In reality, Inter fans and Porto fans are probably the only ones that like him. But even at United, he won the Europa League with them, and I'm pretty sure he did a Community Shield, and I think he did an FA Cup as well with United. Now, when you look at all of the teams in and around where Tottenham are, I just think to myself, right, so we brought in Jose Mourinho and we really kind of fucked it up with him. We fucked it up with Pochettino because in reality, we will always have to hold the L that was sacking Pochettino at this point. Because in reality, if we all could all use hindsight and go back now, we would have been crying out for the Spurs board to not get rid of him. I mean, we were at the time, obviously, as well. It was a stupid decision. I think, yeah, we brought in Antonio Conte, but in reality, I just don't see anything changing because irrespective, Daniel Levy in reality has shown over this past summer that he is in complete control of what's going on. Do you remember the whole Modric saga?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And he turned around and basically said to Luka Modric, "You're not leaving because I'll just let you rot on the bench." He was just like, so, and that for me is a pointless atmosphere. So, regardless of whether you have Conte, Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Pochettino, I feel like they will always be hindered. And I look at Antonio Conte, and he's a great passionate manager. And again, like he gave interviews which I've watched where he turns around and said like he'd rather kill a man than let him play in his team if he
Yeah,
doesn't want to play for the
yeah,
team.
yeah,
And
yeah.
obviously it's brilliant, but there's only so much power you can have from the changing room if you're not really going to be in control. And again, you can say assurances to me, but I cannot get on board with the Spurs
No,
ownership
but this
saying
is
that he's
why
got free
though.
reign.
This is why I think there is something different because I think with Paratici, I think there has to be. I think there has to be because the thing is, I also think objective number one is just to start turning the team around, and I think he can do with Kane what he did with Lukaku at
Yeah,
Inter. I mean, he made Lukaku. Well, but him and Inter turned Lukaku into one of the most feared strikers in Europe again.
that's true. Yeah,
And I think he can probably work wonders with Kane, make him the lead again. And I think what it is then is potentially do we see or could I see Kane leaving in the summer for then him to bring in if we're looking at like Vlahovic and Chiesa, is he saying, look, let's we can get rid of him in the summer if I'm being backed with these other transfers. I've got a feeling that they are going to back him to some level because the worst thing and the thing about Pochettino is there's always that season where we didn't sign anyone in 2 windows,
yeah,
and that will go down in history for all the wrong reasons. Now, was he after anyone in particular? I mean, I can't believe as a manager he wouldn't be wanting to add anyone. That was the real shock warning signs that if we haven't spent a pound in 2 transfer windows,
yeah,
something's not right. It isn't a football club then.
yeah,
And so that's why, like I said, that's why I think Conte and going back to what you said about the 18 months, I think I was worried initially about it being short, but I think it's perfect for both parties because if for whatever reason he's not turning it round, we don't owe another manager a shed load of money because we've sacked him early.
Yeah, this is also
But
true.
also he can walk away if any assurances aren't met. But again, rumours. But I'm being told that I'm being told. I'm reading that yeah, him and Paratici are going to be more in control of things.
Well, they worked together at Juventus, didn't they?
Yeah, and at this point, I can't see the point of bringing Conte in if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I can kind of get that. I can kind of get that. I just think that in reality, like I said to you, I mean, the reason I asked you earlier, do you think Everton can win the FA Cup, is only because Everton are basically at the same quality that Spurs are. So this is what I'm saying. It's a case of like, well, anyone really within that top 14 bracket has a shot of winning a cup because everyone can go on a cup run. So I just think to myself, Conte is a fantastic signing, and I don't think if he doesn't win anything or doesn't challenge for anything, I just don't even think it will necessarily be his fault because we've seen that in reality over recent years that Spurs have got a track history with it. And I just think as well, even it'd be nice to see a manager that's got proper control over money because when you look at the Spurs team and how we were actually lined up, you think that the players that I think our biggest mistake in terms of letting a player go and not replacing them was Christian Eriksen.
Yeah, yeah.
Christian Eriksen was a creative midfielder, and we really missed him. When you look at Spurs line up for a free kick now, who do you trust to take it?
No, no,
No one, because they're all
yeah,
shit. They're
yeah.
all shit. Like even Heung-min Son really isn't great from a dead ball. Harry Kane will send that shit belting into orbit. And I just think to myself as well, we've not spent money correctly. Like we've got Eric Dyer, the absolute gigantic headed knob, sitting at centre back, and he doesn't understand how to play centre back.
Eric, if you want to come on and talk to us about it, though, please. But what I'm saying though is, yeah, you're right. But I think we still do have players in the team that can, should, and will play back to their best. I think if they're under someone who is a proven winner and someone who can probably give them that motivation and make them feel like winners. Again, his contacts in Italy, he's probably already got a few cheap or he's probably already working out now. I'm hearing we're going to sign. Well, again, this is all rumours, but sign a midfielder from Milan for free next season. He's already going to have kept an eye on, no doubt, 4 or 5 players that he wants, probably on short contracts over there, who he can get to come over. And could Nuno have signed, or even be talking about maybe getting Chiesa or Belotti or
Yeah.
Delict. Conte, even if yeah, players will still want Champions League football, but Conte's got to be a bigger draw, right? So you'd hope to think that he could potentially still get those players.
Yeah, yeah. I've just had a read. It's Frank Kessie, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
that's
think is the
it. Yeah,
midfielder that we're linked with.
yeah.
I mean, it obviously only time will tell. I just think that obviously him coming in. Do you think we'll make signings in January?
I think it will. I
I
think
think
I think couple, not a
Yeah,
lot.
I think he'll have to because in reality, if I'm being honest, I actually think that this Spurs team at the minute is probably one of the worst that I've personally watched, to be honest. And I actually remember when Juan de Ramos was manager of Spurs, and they were shit then. They were proper shit then. And this is the thing: when you think about it, we're actually. I know you've just talked about flirting with transfers. We're flirting with Juan de Ramos days with how this Spurs team is performing at the minute, and I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see some great marquee signings in January. Like I know that we talked about players, obviously like Delic, Kessie's obviously one that's been linked as well. Chiesa, I don't think Chiesa would ever get off the line because I don't think Juve would let him go. But it'd be nice to see some big players come in. It would just nice to be. It'd be nice to see Tottenham again start to play a really nice style of football. Because when you think about Mourinho, I'll never forget. Do you know with Mourinho? Do you know what game I remember Mourinho changing for me? I think it was it 0-0 against Liverpool, and in the last minute, Roberto Firmino headed home from a corner, and Tottenham had defended all out that game. The objective was that's it, no one's scoring, and I just thought to myself after that, I was like, we're dead because this is killer for these Spurs players because they've realised this doesn't work. And after that point, that was the moment that I saw our season fall apart. So it'd be nice to get Tottenham playing really nice football again because I feel like the
Yeah,
players are more in tune with it then. When you
but
look at the way that we
this is
played
it.
under Pochettino,
Yeah, sorry. It'd be good to get, like I said, like Kane and Son back to where they were a season like so ago. But this is it, right? And it's has it just been a mismatch of things throughout the last few years? So under Poch, you had him playing really good football,
Yeah,
but there was the accusation was, well, he's not a winner. So no, no. Then you had Mourinho, who was a winner, but was working with that squad and turned them totally defensive. So when it didn't work, it's like, well, we're not attacking.
yeah,
Under Conte, you've got someone who I think, like you said, I think is a good tactician. Let's not underestimate again. Okay, we did get knocked out. Was it in the round of 16 by Germany? But getting that Italy side to them, having won the group, I
beating
don't think,
Spain.
yeah, and beating Spain, I don't think anyone was expecting that. So that was a pretty special tournament for him to
Yeah,
get that out of them. And then, with Inter, like you said, I know Italy, the league at the moment, it feels like it's in a state of flux there, but he still won it. I think what I'm trying to say is I think right now there's no excuses. The only problem is it too late to have got him in? We needed him at the start of the season. You've got a manager who wins, a manager who's probably got the right attitude. It's just, is it too late? So Nuno, I think, was the wrong person at the wrong time.
yeah.
Is Conte the right person, but at far too late a time?
Yeah, you know what? That's the thing. But yeah, yeah. I'm kind of worried that's what the issue is, because in reality, even if he stays for his 18 months, it takes him to the end of this season. Now, ultimately, he's only got a year left after that. Now, we've kind of left Antonio Conte in reality in the worst possible situation, because he's now being brought in at a moment where he's got no ability to buy anyone immediately. So he has got to work with the players that have played Nuno's crap style of football, with big, gigantic knobhead Eric Dyer playing centre back for us, and a Harry Kane who, in reality, in the summer, let's be honest, didn't want to be at Tottenham. I feel like it is actually probably, if you're coming into Spurs, the worst time to come into Spurs. So I mean, maybe it might be amazing. Maybe you might turn around and transform this team. We're going to go to a back three with two wing backs, and do you know what I mean? Maybe. I don't know. I just feel like it's a really, really difficult place to be. And don't get me wrong, I think Antonio Conte is brilliant. Obviously, he won the title with Inter. I thought he was brilliant for Italy, as much as we didn't really do anything under him. We still had performances from him that we didn't expect to get,
Yeah,
and
and
that's
he's
what I
won the
think it
league here.
was.
He's got
Yeah,
experience of
yeah, and he
winning the
has won
league
the
in
league here
England
as
as
well.
well.
Yeah, that's true as well. To be fair, I just think it's a very, very difficult job. I think that the Spurs board, the Spurs ownership, have kind of left him in a shit place in reality. But and let's be honest, Tottenham wouldn't have been his first choice,
No.
because do you know this game against United?
Hmm.
Who I'm telling you, I think whoever lost that game, if it was a 3-0 Spurs and United lost, I think we'd be having the same discussion about Solskjaer.
Oh yeah, well, it was called El Sakiko, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And in reality, this is where like the limit is. So I don't know.
well, this is it though. So two things. One, I think you've got to feel. I have to feel excited. I think this is a great opportunity, but we have to remember underlying why Spurs fans have also been moaning at the club, and it hasn't always been the manager. So one, I feel excited. Two, yeah, at least it stops him going to someone else for now. Yeah,
That's yeah, you know what? Maybe losing. Maybe we didn't want Spurs to win, because yeah, he would have been at United and probably would have transformed them. But I mean, sorry, I know that we're going to finish because we're on the half an hour mark. I have just been reading all the articles, and it says, Tottenham to be Conte to be given £280 million war chest. And I hate when they say that, because in reality he's got 40 million quid to spend in January, and then probably another 30 in the summer.
280 asterisk. You go down the bottom of the page, selling Kane, Lloris, Højbjerg,
Yeah, Heung-min
Son.
Son.
Well, anyway, yeah, we'll leave it. We could go on for hours, but we'll leave it there. My last comment is the only thing I've been frustrated with is that yesterday it was full of, yeah, Conte's coming back, and then already today the papers are like, "Oh, beware, he's like this or he doesn't like this." It's like,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
even
yeah.
managed a minute of a game yet.
I know.
But is there one
I tell you
last
what,
thing from
then.
you? Oh, go on.
Yeah, my finishing note. Maybe we should touch back on this when Conte's not at Spurs anymore.
Oh, I was going to say you took the words out of my mouth, but I was going to say let's revisit this maybe on the 1st of January and see where
Yeah,
we're at,
yeah, or maybe at
or
the end of
maybe
the
at the
season. Yeah, we'll go back on this and
the end
say
of the
no.
first transfer window. Let's do the end
Yeah,
of the first
yeah, yeah.
transfer window. All right, cool. Well, thank you. You've been listening to Casting Mini Views, and you may hear another one of these soon.